sisters in Christ Jesus. As we have in the first reading today, once again the continued story of Prophet Elijah. And as we know, that prophet is a mouthpiece of God, and he is a person who obeys what God wants. Each and every time we find Prophet Elijah listening to the voice of the Lord, to the word of the Lord, he obeys every time. When God instructed, go to the king and say these words, he went and he said. And when God instructed, do this, he did it. And when God said, don't do that, he did not do that. So in a way, he was always obeying what God was saying. And that's the reason that he was a blessed prophet there. And today in the first reading, we find God tells him, come out to the place and I want to reveal myself to you. And he obeys and he comes out to look at God who is going to meet him. And he is just waiting for the Lord to come and meet. In the history, we find God manifested himself to his people. Maybe through thunder, maybe through lightning, maybe through an earthquake, or maybe by fire, or through powerful sources by which God manifested himself to the people. If people wanted to see God, they were waiting for lightning, thunder, rain, or even fire so that they can witness God. When we look back into human tradition, we find in the history, natural things were esteemed to be God, and people worshipped natural things to be God. The reason was that we have people who worship rain, people who worship thunder, people who worship lightning, and people who also worship the sun, the fire, and much more. The reason for is that whenever they found something powerful than them, if something was very much powerful over them, than them, then they considered it to be God. Then they started worshipping, and in a way they offered also sacrifices in a way to appease that person or God, or to please that person or God. So this started in a way wherein people started worshipping natural calamities or things of the nature which were very powerful than them. Because we find rain is something very much needed for their livelihood, and it becomes a source of water, so it was worshipped. We find fire, it has a very much powerful, it has the very power to destroy. And we have lightning and thunder, which can create and strike people or even places. So all these things created a way of devotion, a fear maybe we can say, and this start of fear resulted in worshipping other gods and natural things. But today we find in the first reading wherein God said to Prophet Elijah, come out and I want to reveal myself to you. And this prophet is waiting to meet God. And we have the earthquake, we have a shaking, we have even lightning like clouds, and also at times we also have fire coming down. But we find after all these manifestations, after this all intros, we don't find God there. The words are telling us this: even after the earthquake, God was not there. Even after this, God was not there. And even after a long time, God was not present in this. But after it is a last short sentence is given, wherein it is said, through a small voice, mild voice, God was there. God spoke. Even in our lives today, we also may expect God to do plenty big miracles for us. We may be expecting that God should do best thing for us. Maybe the best car, He should make us to able to buy it. Or maybe the best infrastructure or the best buildings that we could construct. And we wanted God to help us to construct the big and the best things of the world. But God's plan might be really different from our thoughts. For we have the example today. And this Elijah prophet was expecting that God may reveal himself in this fire or maybe in this earthquake. But we find God getting to meet him through a mild voice. Maybe through silence at times. And many people who desire silence, they say, it's not that we find God only in the way of shouting, lamenting, opening our mouths, asking the Lord to come, asking for His blessings. Not that all the time. And even in silence, God meets. Even in silence, we find God meeting His people. Even in silence, He speaks, He converses, and at times He comforts the people in silence. So today, through a mild voice, God met Prophet Elijah and spoke to him. For Elijah was a bit troubled. The reason why God wanted to meet Elijah was that Elijah was troubled in heart. We have Prophet Elijah who was in trouble today. The reason was that all the people against him, the whole people of Israel are against Prophet Elijah, and they wanted Elijah to be killed. And by all means, they wanted this prophet Elijah to be out of this world. And that's the reason our prophet is very much troubled in heart. And he comes to this wilderness and he stays here. But God in a way wants to meet him. God in a way wants to converse with this prophet Elijah. And God conversed with this prophet Elijah so that this prophet will be strengthened. This prophet will be still more a mighty instrument in the hands of the Lord. So Prophet Elijah is strengthened now as he has met God. And he says, "Now the whole Israel people are against me. And I don't know how long am I going to live. These people, if they find me, they can kill me at any time. And my livelihood, or the way that I don't know how long am I going to live. But I am afraid of it and I stay here." But God, after meeting him, gives him the comfort, gives him all the strength there. And then after that he says, "And I am going to make so and so as so." And we have the word saying, "Go, return on your way to Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be the king over Syria, and Jehu the son of Nimshi, and you shall anoint him as the king of Israel. And Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abimelech, you shall anoint him as a prophet." So the kingdom of Syria is going to be blessed with a king. The kingdom of Israel is also going to be blessed with a king. And now then, we have two places of Syria and also Israel. And God clearly instructs Prophet Elijah saying, "Now you are afraid, you are staying in this place for your troubled in heart. But I have met you. I am leading you. I am guiding you, and I am the one who is instructing you. So anoint this person for me to be the king over Syria, and anoint this person to be the king over the kingdom of Israel." And thereby he also says, maybe you're old of age, and now you're going to share your power, the power of a prophet, with someone. And this person is of name Elisha, wherein he will be also like you, a prophet for me. And he will also work with me, and he will also work for me. Just as you are faithful to me, just as the way you are obedient to me, just as the way you are obedient to all my teachings and instructions and guidance, this person of name Elisha is also going to be the same. And now you should anoint him to be a prophet who will continue the process of my message to the people of Israel. And maybe after a short while, you may not be with the people of Israel for long. And after your departure, after you, this prophet Elisha will come into force, and he will lead the people of Israel and also the people of Syria afterwards. So God in a way met Prophet Elijah there, guided him, instructed them, and also gave a proper instruction saying that you are going to anoint two of the kings and also prophet who are going to be my messengers. You are going to anoint two of the kings of the kingdom of Israel and kingdom of Syria, and also a prophet Elisha, who are going to be my messengers, for I have chosen them to be so. And they will be a blessed one, and they will lead the people, and they will guide the people in a proper way. So God, by meeting Prophet Elijah, has strengthened Prophet Elijah there. Prophet Elijah has done plenty of wondrous things in his life through all the works of the Lord. And for the greater glory of God, he has done plenty of activities and works. And now God makes him realize that God is still with him. Even in this troublesome time that he faced, God was always with him. In our lives, we may also face a time wherein we may feel all alone. We may feel that there is no one to care for us. There is no one to love us. There is no one to look after us. But never ever be dismayed, for we have Almighty powerful God who is always there by our side. Just as like how He was guiding and protecting Prophet Elijah in the past, surely He will guide us and He will lead us. And what is needed is that we entrust everything unto Him. The trust that we have will surely make us to be with Him all the days. And that's what the first reading calls us, to have complete trust in the Lord, the Creator, who guided and blessed Prophet Elijah, so that we may also be blessed and that we may be true in His faith in our Christian life. And as we come to the Gospel today, we find the words of the Old Testament being brought into discussion today. In the Old Testament, in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses gave us the law, wherein if someone is found to be being away from a relationship, or maybe from the marital covenant, maybe by disobedience, by adultery, a reason is given, and also divorce can be given or provided. And this discussion is brought again here in the New Testament today with Jesus, wherein the authorities bring to Jesus' notice about the activities of adultery and also divorce. And when we speak about adultery, we find Jesus saying, in the Old Testament, maybe with the act of adultery, you go to a woman or go to a man, and thereby it becomes a crime of adultery. But now, Jesus gives a different meaning to the aspect of adultery. He gives a new definition for the word of adultery. He says, even if you look at a woman with lustful eyes, it becomes adultery. We find a proverb in the past that says, face is the index of the mind. Maybe we understand it, we say, by seeing someone's face, we understand how the person is feeling, how the person is looking, how the thoughts and desires of the person might be there. But I came across a book wherein it said, eye is the index of the mind. We find eye becomes the index of the mind, wherein when we look at the person's eye, we know whether the person is firm or not. We look at the person's eye, whether he is concentrating here or not. We know whether the person is present actively or alive by looking at the eye of the person. Or maybe in a meeting that we come across, if the person's eyes are shut, we would mean he is not interested, or maybe he is busy, tired. So we find eye becoming index of the mind. So it is through the eyes that we see things. It is through the eyes that we come across or we gain knowledge. And Jesus says this eye is the only thing, or it becomes the cause for us even to fall into sin or temptation. Because what we see by the eye, our mind thinks over, then our heart thinks over, and the whole activity makes us to sin at times. We may fall into temptations when our eye leads us the thoughts or desires that we look at into our mind and through our heart. So Jesus says, if anyone looks at even at a woman with lustful eyes, a lustful thought in our mind, then it becomes a crime. It's a sin. In the Old Testament, only the act of adultery, wherein a woman goes and it is happening, and that it was an adultery, it was a crime. But Jesus gives a complete new meaning to the people there, saying, even if you look, then it becomes a crime. Even if you look at women with lustful thoughts, lustful desire, then it becomes a crime, and it's like as if you have done an adultery with her already. So that's what we speak about adultery here, wherein Jesus, giving a new definition, makes them understand things properly. And we have the aspect of divorce. And today in the society, it has become very common that get married in the morning, get divorced in the evening. So that has been a trend today, wherein people, without understanding what a sacrament meant, what a sacrament of marriage means, they marry get the other, and at once, without even understanding the other, they get divorces. There have been cases which looks funny and interesting. A woman applied for a divorce, and the reason was that the husband did not give her the remote when he wanted to watch TV. So that's the cases that we find today, wherein people, without having proper understanding of the other, they apply for divorce and they are separated. But we find in the book of Genesis, When God created Adam and Eve, He created Eve out of Adam, meaning to say they are co-equals. And Eve was taken out made out of the rib of Adam. We find rib becomes the important bone in our body, wherein it protects the main heart and also it gives a structure to the body. So meaning to say, without a rib, a person cannot be. Each and every person needs to have a rib so that a heart is protected by this bone and a structure. So in a way, women and men are equal. They are co-equals, and that's what God made them, and that's the way God created them, that male and female are equals and they are co-equals. But we find injustices given to women, and at times there are quarrels, troublesome, dowry cases, plenty of suicides that are led to, and much more trouble that we face today. But Jesus says, by the sacrament of marriage, both the men and women are not two, but they become one. They become one in spirit, they become one in mind, they become one in thought, and they become one in spirit completely. When a man and woman by the sacrament of marriage are united, it means that God had united them. And the word says that what God had united, let man not separate. It is true that God had united them. A man born someplace, a woman who was born in some place, but they are brought up together, and God unites them to form a sacrament there. The sacrament of marriage is fulfilled there when both these two hearts come together and becomes one heart with one thought, one desire, and one thing in mind. But today, when the understanding between the spouses does not come into force, we have disharmony and disruption of marital lives, and thereby we have divorce taking the upper hand in the society at times. There are plenty of divorce cases that we find in the newspaper or even the records of the court. And what might be the answer that we can give to it? The best answer is that unless proper understanding between the husband and wife comes, then there can be a proper mutual love between them, and so divorces can be put to an end. The divorces can come to an end until or unless when there is proper understanding, when there is mutual self-giving, when there is mutual sharing, when there is mutual communication, then divorces will never happen. So to have a proper understanding divorce, we should know that both man and woman should love equally. They should share equally. They should communicate with each other. They should know what is the desire of this person. They should know what is the thought of this person. And when they come to know about all of them, when they understand them completely, when both of them understand each other very well, then the marriage or marital union becomes strong. And that's the way, by marital union becoming strong, the person also stays together and be good. Jesus today in the gospel says, and unless by the law, but unless by the cause of adultery, there should be no divorces allowed. So that also becomes a stance in the church, wherein unless by the cause of adultery or unchastity that we find, divorces should not be allowed. So understanding that God has united by the sacrament of marriage, and for all the people who are married, we find God had united, that you have to be united in one mind, one spirit, and there should be mutual love, mutual caring, mutual support between yourself. And that's what God desired, and it has happened so. So as we celebrate this Eucharist, let us ask the Eucharistic Lord that we may be praying for all the people who are suffering and in pain because of divorces, and asking the Lord to have mercy on them, and for the broken families around the world, that mutual love and care may reach their families and they may be united. And praying also for the couples all around the world, asking for more love, more compassion, more comfort from the gracious Lord. Let us offer this Holy Eucharist in a worthy way. Amen.